Okay, we are going to convene the meeting of Thursday, August 21st, 2014. One of our members, Michael Giammo, will be participating remotely because of
Travel.
his being out of town. All in accordance with the Board of Selectmen, Town of Sherborn policy on remote participation. First thing I need to do is to verify that the caller is on the line and he can hear. Michael, are you on the line and can you hear?
Yes. And yes.
For those who are participating in this meeting, here are the rules. All votes will be taken by roll call vote. Anyone interested in speaking or providing comment must be recognized by the meeting chair before speaking. Once recognized, all speakers must come to the front of the room to be near the phone equipment. And I'm pointing to the place where you need to come if you want to be heard. I'd add multiple speakers trying to speak at the same time cannot be heard through the remote participation. So we really have to comply with these rules. Before offering comment, the speaker must identify themselves by their first and last name every time they are recognized, and additionally should provide their home address the first time they are recognized. If a communication problem is encountered, we will take a brief break and try to resolve the issue. If the line disconnects, the remote participant is responsible for trying to reestablish the connection by dialing back into the phone system. If the problem cannot be resolved in a few minutes or continues to occur, the use of the equipment will be stopped. Background noise, conversations, and speaking without being recognized should be kept to a minimum, and we ask that all attendees remain quiet throughout the meeting unless recognized to speak. This is because it becomes impossible for the remote participation technology to pick up the conversations. With that, we'll have the town administrator read the agenda.
First, we'll vote to, vote to approve or amend the agenda and add topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance. We have one item, which is to add an executive session at the end of the open session to discuss litigation. Then a public comment period, and then discussion of Pine Hill Access Road. And then routine business under the town administrator's report. We'll look at preliminary FY 2014 financials. The town accountant will be here. I'll give a brief update about the building inspector hiring process, and then a fire department HVAC update with the project manager. Then we'll look at upcoming meeting topics, hear any selectmen reports, and set the next meeting date, and approve the warrants. And that'll do it.
Michael, did you hear that?
Yes.
Do you have any amendments to the agenda?
No.
Peter, do you have any amendments to the agenda?
No.
So could I have a motion to adopt the agenda as proposed to be amended by the town administrator?
So moved.
No. Second.
Hearing no further discussion, we'll have a roll call vote. Selectman Giammo.
Aye.
Selectman Caruso.
Aye.
And Durensis votes aye. Therefore, pursuant to the agenda just adopted, we start with public comment. Is there any public comment?
There's nobody signed up.
Nobody signed up. Okay. Then on the 6:15 item, perhaps we should hold that till 6:15 in case anybody was planning to attend. So I'd suggest we go to routine business for the time being.
I can talk about the building inspector. As you know, Walter Avalon's last day is August 31st, and he will be taking on duties at Dover full-time. And we had posted the position. We got a good response. We have 6 top candidates that are all qualified to do the position. And we're going through those, and I'll be sending out a little more information on those people. And hopefully we can get somebody started within the first couple of weeks. And Walter understands that there may be a small transition period until that person gets on board. So that's all we have to report on that right now.
And how about just giving us a preview of upcoming meeting topics?
We've scheduled the Leland Farms discussion for September 4th. For September 18th, we were looking at the Western Avenue and Whitney intersection amended plan with the Western Ave intersection committee present and traffic safety committee. And on October 2nd, we have planned the wildlife committee and revenue development committees coming in. And then on October 2nd, we have a planned discussion about fees and pay-as-you-throw.
There is a request for copies of agendas. There's none out there.
No.
Do we have copies?
Diane is on vacation, so we don't have copies, but we can make them.
I see we have a volunteer who's going to go make copies. Thank you. There's Selectmen reports. Anybody want to talk about Selectmen reports?
I have nothing.
Michael?
Yeah, no, I don't have anything this week either.
And neither do I. Meeting calendar and set next meeting. The proposed next meeting is September 4th. Is that okay with you, Michael?
I think so.
Peter?
Yes.
Is that going to be the tax classification hearing?
Yes, we do have that scheduled that night. We have that scheduled for 6:15.
We have no approval of minutes, but we have approval of warrants, payroll, and accounts payable.
Yes.
Do you want to make a little presentation about it?
I didn't write one up. I was reviewing it just before the meeting.
Can you
There's-
shed any light on it for the public?
Well, there's one separate payroll warrant, which is my payroll warrant, because I can't sign my own payroll. That's that one. Then there's the routine biweekly payroll. And then there's an accounts payable, paying a number of different bills. There are a few over 5,000 that were emailed to you directly, but they were all still routine expenses. The only payment in there that we would be looking for would be the payment of the appraiser for the Abbey Road project. That payment is in there.
I had a concern about one particular department has an employee who's, looks like working 3 jobs, 2 of which are grant funded and one of which is the regular job for a total of 40 hours. And that was of concern to me, so that we do not get into the situation where we are creating an eligibility for health insurance or benefits.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that, so
It's
we
in-
should talk.
It's in the report from the town accountant.
That's right, we got an email late in the afternoon, or this afternoon on that.
With the financial report?
I don't think so. I think it was just a separate email on the payroll being available, right? I see.
Yeah, it looks like there's a situation where the funding for the employee is coming both from the town and from grants, but the total is 40 hours a week.
Okay.
Was it 40 hours a week or 40 hours for the period?
It was, I can't remember, I think it was for the whole.
Ruth,
Is somebody talking,
Yes, she's making her way to the microphone.
if he could not to talk until they get there.
this is Ruth Hohenshaw, town accountant.
Thank you, Ruth.
Hi, Mike. Without going back, if I looked at the payroll, I could tell you, but I thought it was a total of 40 hours for the 2-week period, but that makes it.
Still 20 hours a week.
It's 20 hours. I think the grant money is it's like not going through the whole year, but you asked us to bring to your attention if anything was over,
That's the
borderline.
first time we've seen that
Yeah.
particular instance,
Yeah.
correct?
As far as I know. I mean, that's the first time I've noticed it this year. The grant money, I think, is just available this year, and I don't know how long it's going to go for, but it's probably short-lived, and I don't think it's going to be like a permanent number of hours.
But even so, that
But we're just trying to
triggered for me
keep an eye on it.
a concern that wherever the funding comes from, it's 20
It's
hours or
still 20
over,
hours.
and
But we've engaged.
go along with it this week, but...
Yeah, and it's really David signing off on these unless you want to hold it out, is
No,
the
I'm going
process.
to go along with it, but
Right.
I want to give fair warning that I'm uncomfortable with this, so I might object the next time around.
I was unaware of it, so I'll look into it, that's all. I can't comment
I
on it.
don't think it's a defense to not putting somebody on the pension, that it was only for a year or two.
It won't be that long. But I guess I have a question. Do you want me to continue flagging those items, or?
For me, yes,
Okay.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, me too. Before you go, just in case, you know how we're authorizing your payroll, because you can't do that. There were a couple of items, I did happen to look through the payable piece, and there were a few items where you'd authorize those. Technically, should we be pulling those out? No, Ruth's shaking her
No.
head.
No,
Okay. I
No.
just
they
wanted
weren't
to clarify.
reimbursements.
To you,
to me.
that's correct. Yeah,
Right.
it's just department head authorization.
Right.
Yeah, gotcha. That clears it
So is there a motion to
up. We
approve?
don't have to move anything.
If David is authorized to sign it, the only one you have to sign is the one with his payroll. That's my understanding of the
That-
change.
That's how I
Okay, but
understand.
don't we want to have a motion that we're not objecting or not?
If you wish.
Well, let's do the one that we do have to approve. That's warrant number 4. And this is the town administrator salary only.
So
Is there a
moved.
motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
Hearing no further discussion, all in favor? Durensis votes aye. Caruso?
Aye.
Giamo?
aye.
All right, David, you get paid, all right. It's touch and go there.
All right, it's after 6:15. Do you want any kind of motion on these other two to say that we don't have any
If
objection?
you hear and you reviewed it, you might as well go on the record of saying that you're not withdrawing anything out of the warrant to be
So,
held.
Why don't we do a motion to approve those two warrants?
You don't have any held items.
No, no.
Okay.
So, how would I do that? I don't want to approve the warrant. I want to say
Don't object to the
I don't
warrant.
object to the warrant. How do
There
I
you go.
make-
You made a motion that the board,
make no objection to the warrant.
all right, I'll second that. Any further discussion? Okay,
We will be discussing the policy on, when we look at Board of Selectmen
Yes.
operating procedures, and
Yes.
we'll come up with something that's more smooth.
For these situations, yes, yeah.
All right, this needs to be a roll call vote. Mike?
Yeah, I do have a question for David. David, have you found anything more out about the goose remediation issue?
Oh, and the overtime?
Yes.
That was, one of the officers was filling overtime anyway on another reason. And basically, it was an early morning thing, and it should have only been maybe an hour. And it was because he was a certified firearms expert, and he was not in that day, so he was brought in for that hour. And the chief is nodding his head that I got that right.
All right. I mean, it's too bad we couldn't have done it on a day when he wasn't, so we didn't have to pay overtime.
Yes, and the chief and I talked about that.
Okay.
So we're voting. Michael, do you vote yes or no?
We're voting on the fact that there are no objections to the warrant, Paul?
Yes.
Okay, aye.
Aye.
Peter? And I vote aye. All right, let's go to our 6:15 agenda item, which is discussion of Pine Hill Access Road, use of tailings on road surface. Ed Wagner, CM&D Director. So I presume Ed is going to make a presentation. Ed, could you come forward?
Evening.
There's two microphones you got to speak to. Oh, the little one and the big one.
We good?
Leave them where they are, where they were.
Don't touch either one. We're here tonight to discuss the use of recycled asphalt pavement on the Pine Hill Access Road. We received a number of different questions and raised, and obviously the board wanted to address people's concerns. In going through I believe there was one email that was expressed an opinion in the negative use of the recycled asphalt. In going through that email and doing some research myself, I could find next to nothing on any sort of hazardous detrimental use of the material. And for those of you who don't know what we're doing, we would like to use, when we go through and repave a roadway, what we will do is grind down, and you can use that recycled asphalt and lay it onto the roadway, level it out, compact it, and it's the cost of the recycled asphalt is free. The only thing we'd be paying for in the case of the Pine Hill School is the cost to spread it out. And going through the federal DOT manual, the state of Maine DOT manual, Michigan, Wisconsin had one, and I believe Texas was the other one. They're all utilizing this recycled asphalt as part of their best management practices. In going through, they had a number of case points where they're encouraging the use of this recycled as a low cost, a way of recycling, and not introducing this material into local landfills. I don't know what else to say about it. It's a great low-cost way for us to maintain this roadway. What we'd like to do is spread it out on the roadway, and given its limited use, I feel that this type of surface treatment.
Hey, Ed, whatever's happening, I'm sorry, folks, but the microphone has broken down. I don't hear anything clearly. It was fine before.
How's that? Is that much better?
It's a little better, but it was very clear before.
How's that?
Yes, that's better.
Sufficient?
Yeah, I think you want to sit a little further back maybe or something.
You get a cell phone?
Michael, he's turning off his cell phone.
That
In
might
case
help.
that caused any interference, so we're having a little break here.
Okay. Questions?
There were two letters that we received, and perhaps we ought to read them so that they're clear on the record. We have one from the chairman of the school committee, Frank Hess, and we have one from an abutter, Lanny Rubin.
Do you want me to read those?
Yes, I think Frank's came in first, and then Lanny second.
This letter is to the Sherborn Selectmen from Frank Hess, Chairman, Sherborn School Committee, August 15th, 2014. The subject, use of road scrapings to stabilize or improve Pine Hill Road extension. I am unable to attend the Sherborn Board of Selectmen's meeting on August 21st, 2014. Please allow the following to be read into the record. I am not an expert on road construction, but when I visited Green Lane today, 8/14/2014, I did not need to be an expert to see that this gravel road was so washed out and potholed that it was dangerous. I know that we have to spend significant town funds several times per year just to keep that road usable. So when the question came up a few weeks ago about using the road scrapings from North Main Street on the Pine Hill Road extension, my only questions were, will the use of the scrapings be environmentally safe? Will the use of the scraping help to stabilize the road surface? If the road experts think that the answers to those two questions are yes, then it seems that it would be common sense to use this material that would be essentially free to help maintain the road. It is my understanding that a very small number of people are against the use of this material because it might make the road too good or look too black or be too usable or look too much like the other 99.99% of roads we have in town. It is also my understanding that a very small number of people are saying that the voters did not want an all-weather road that could be used to alleviate traffic congestion as well as provide emergency access. This is not true. At the 2011 annual town meeting, a strong majority, 161, voted yes and 99 voted no for the article that proposed an all-weather blacktop road with proper drainage which created emergency access and an improved traffic pattern. Because a borrowing to fund the road was included in the motion, it required a 2/3 vote and failed to be adopted. This strong majority vote was achieved with a very small percentage of Pine Hill parents present at the meeting, showing the strong support of voters who no longer had a direct connection to the school. When talking to voters who did not support the motion, they said they were for the road as proposed, but were concerned about the finances of the town. They would have liked to have seen more state or grant support to help with the funding. There is still a state earmark on the books for $1 million to complete the road. I have no way of knowing if that earmark will ever be released to the town, but I hope that the town leaders will continue to use their influence to encourage state officials to award the funds to Sherborn so that the road can be completed according to the professional design and engineering to which the town has already pledged its support by way of significant funding. In the meantime, it would seem prudent to use any safe, beneficial, free material to help stabilize the investment made to provide an immediate, emergency-only second access. Frank Hess, Chairman, Sherborn School Committee. The other letter is from, it's an email from Lawrence Rubin, Sunday, August 17th, 2014, 2:21 p.m., to Frank Hess, David Williams, Paul Durensis, Peter Caruso, Michael Gimo, Diane Moores, Jeannie Guthrie, Ed Wagner, and Warren Wheelwright. The subject is use of scrapings on Pine Hill Access Road. Discussion set for 8/21 at 6 p.m. BOS meeting. I am writing because I am also unable to attend the August 21st Selectmen's meeting regarding the use of asphalt scrapings on the Pine Hill Access Road. I would call your attention to the Gravel Road Maintenance Manual of the State of Maine. In it, the use of asphalt scrapings is discussed. There seem to be many virtues to their use. However, on page 27 of the manual, it states that, quote, more data is needed on alternative surface materials relative to possible resulting pollution, life cycle performance, required frequency of compaction and grading, and use on seasonal versus year-round roads, end of quotes. It seems to me that since there is much information on constructing and maintaining dirt roads, it is not worth the risk of polluting the water table by using an untested material in the proximity of fairly dense housing. The danger of well pollution is simply not worth the risk. I would also refer you to the Massachusetts Unpaved Roads BMP manual, which, among other things, stresses the importance of vegetation close to a road as a means of water dispersal. The stripping of the land abutting the road has perhaps contributed to its questionable surface. Ordinary good maintenance should mitigate the problems on the road, and the Massachusetts and Maine manuals give plenty of advice on how to maintain good dirt roads. Regarding the comparison made to Green Lane, it is clear that Green Lane lacks almost every basic of good dirt road construction and maintenance. I imagine this goes back to the origins of the road, but it is clear there is almost no crowning or grading, there are no runoff ditches beside the road, and potholes have not been filled recently. There should be no comparison between Green Lane and the Pine Hill Access Road, since the Pine Hill Road is new and was supposedly thoroughly engineered. I thank you for your kind attention. Regards, Lanny Rubin.
Okay, I wonder if there's anybody in the public who wants to contribute to this. Sean Colleen.
I have many comments, I'll keep most of them to myself. but-
Just come up.
You have to come up here. Michael, this is Sean Colleen.
During the discussion, all the letters, everyone refers to the material as road grindings, road scrapings. Your agenda uses the use of tailings. Tailings is typically a byproduct waste from some process. This is a recycled material. I don't think it should be referred to as tailings. It's usually a hazardous waste, such as from mining.
I also learned in this process that Sean is right with that, and it's also called chat. Whatever this tailings
Which is why I try to refer to it as, most of the DOT manuals, they call it recycled asphalt pavement. Otherwise, they also abbreviate it as RAP.
This is loose material, right?
It's a ground up from the existing roadway. It is loose, but it still has some adhesion properties. So if you put it down in a hotter temperature, it's pliable enough where you can shape it and then go through and roll it and get a little bit of compaction to it.
Well, can I just ask Ed one question here, Paul? Ed, if you put this down, do you think it would interfere with the future road if it ever got built? Or it's be used as part of the
Part of
support?
the base, yes.
Base,
Part
okay.
of the base. I might add is also, I mean, the Douses have used this stuff for a number of years up and through the orchards in their parking lot. We've used it, now, not me personally, but my department and or Sherborn has used it over at Fessenden Field for that parking lot. It has since deteriorated into a more of a gravel. It's lost its compaction. But the Douses use it up there for their roadways, the parking lots. This material is used on pretty much virtually every city in town who has access roads into their pump stations, sewer pump stations. It's a great low cost. It's a way of recycling. And it's a great use for the product.
And how would you describe the color?
It will
period of time.
start off as a dull black, and over time it'll turn to a grayish material,
Grayish.
depending on the aggregate that's used.
Yeah.
Mike, are you picking this up?
Yep.
Okay. I saw another hand up. Have you finished with your
Yeah,
questions?
that's great for now. Thank you, Paul.
We have Susie Wheelwright. Excuse me, Susie Taylor. Susie Taylor.
Tyler.
Taylor.
Hi, Susan
Of,
Tyler, not Susie Wheelwright or Taylor. Yeah, I just want to say, in looking at the Massachusetts Unpaved Roads Best Management Practice Manual that was referenced in Lanny Rubin's letter, on page 82 in there, they give examples of what was done. And here is a town in Massachusetts, they had problems where the road was often closed in the spring because it was impassable after the rains, after the winter. And this was a road that was actually open and traveled daily. Now, we have a road that's going to be used at this point on a sporadic period. Anyway, so they put out the gravel, the reprocessed RAP, the reprocessed or reclaimed asphalt product, of which the Mass DEP, once it goes through the the grindings and it's cut down to a certain size, it's not considered to be a solid waste area product. And also, reclaimed asphalt is, if you do your research, is the #1 recycled product in the United States, which is very impressive. So anyway, so this town out in Massachusetts, according to the Massachusetts Unpaved Roads Best Management Manual, they put this product down. And so it goes through and it says, the final solution, the road surface itself was improved using recycled asphalt, giving the road a hard surface that sheds the water easily, and therefore we do not have the rutting and the road is stable for use. And then the last paragraph in this manual says, now the road is easy to grade and shape, but still has the look and feel of gravel. The Highway Department is pleased with the results of the best management practice applications, as are the residents who use the road. The superintendent and his crew are applying the same solutions to other areas in town. So if you actually read the whole best management practices, which was written for the state of Massachusetts, there are numerous towns that have given you the same scenario. They had issues and they have used this. And so, yeah, we voted, 2 years ago to actually pave the road. I see no reason why we do not use this cost-efficient area and product that we have on the roads, on the
Susan?
road. Thank you.
Susan, before
Sure.
you go, you're a member of traffic safety. Did you
Yes.
guys discuss this at all?
Yeah,
recently?
traffic safety, last night we met, we brought this up, and I dropped off the motions that we took last night, which I have here, I'll read to you. Traffic safety, first off, it's not our place to tell the CM&D director, tell the selectmen what products should be used. So this was our motion last night, that the Sherborn Traffic Safety Committee supports the maintenance and improvements of the Pine Hill Road extension at the direction of the Community Maintenance and Development, and that was a unanimous vote, 5-0.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Michael, did you get that?
If everybody could just whisper to Susan what they want to say and have her say it, I'll be perfectly fine.
Believe it, no, I didn't hear him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's my name?
Sorry about that. Is there any other comments anybody wants to make?
I had a question because Peter, I think, asked Ed about whether he intended to compact it, and I don't think I got the answer clearly. Is Ed intending to compact this material?
Yes, what we intend to do is to spread it out, crown it, and then compact it with a roller.
Okay.
That was Ed Wagner speaking.
Great, yes, because the guide that Lanny referenced in his letter specifies that it's very important to compact it to avoid the possibility of some of the runoff fines getting into the surface water, the groundwater.
Yes, and I might add, what we are doing is you're using the grindings from a road, which will probably be in the neighborhood of 10 to 12 years old. And I would add that a newly paved, fresh asphalt road is going to contain much more toxins than a recycled asphalt road. And to make the argument that we're going to be introducing something into the groundwater when everyone's driveway's paved and roadways are paved, this is a very low impact and cost-effective solution. It's become the best management practice of a number of different states.
Anybody else have anything to add?
No, so Paul, the way I see it, Frank Hess put it pretty well. He said if the road experts think that the answers to the two questions he asked, will the use of the scrapings be environmentally safe? And I think I'm hearing that. And will the use of the scraping help to stabilize the road surface? Clearly hearing that. And I think I've seen and discussed with David as well. I consider him to be, in part, one of our road experts besides Ed, favorably speaking of this approach. So for me, that that carries a lot of weight, hearing it from the two of you guys, that this is a good move, and I think Lanny's points are certainly, concerns are well-founded, but it sounds like, rain coming down through it, toxins in the air will give you as much or more challenge.
Yes.
Well, I have a slightly different take here for a couple of reasons. First, Lanny Rubin is an abutter who has a well. I don't know where his well is with regard to the road, but I do know he's in close proximity to the road. So I feel he's justified in being concerned about the impact that this would have on his well. He's also mentioned the impact on the Pine Hill well. Again, I don't know where the Pine Hill well is in relationship to the road. So what I would like to do, or what would make me feel more comfortable, is for us to actually call an engineer, such as Norfolk Ram, and ask them, if this stuff is put down in this location, will it affect the Pine Hill well or Lanny Rubin's well? And if the answer is no, then I agree, everything that Peter has said makes sense. If the answer from the expert says no, that this could potentially cause a problem, then I would be very reluctant to injure an abutter's well, or the school's well.
Mike, this is David. We could get an engineer. I mean, it's going to cost, but I don't think that we would get any engineer to ensure the safety of something that's not down yet. They haven't even seen it.
Or running that product
We
through a
couldn't
testing.
get the people who make the product to commit to us that it's safe to use on our regular roadways. And the fact is that sometimes up to 80% of the product you're buying is reclaimed material.
Yes, and I don't mind it going on streets. The reason why I want an environmental guy and not the manufacturer is, first of all, it's 12 years old or whatever it is. An environmental engineer, I mean, roads are being built all the time, and this stuff is used on roads. So I would expect that you could call him up and say, what really are the issues here? And in asking for an engineer's opinion, I don't mean to in any way belittle anybody's opinions that have been expressed here today. But at the end of the day, they're all opinions. And if it was my well and I was drinking it, I would like to hear more than expressions at a meeting. I'd like to actually have somebody who's got some credentials say this is fine, or this isn't likely to cause a problem. So I don't see it's going to be very expensive to ask this question, because it's used all the time, it happens all the time. Mm-hmm. And B, I think we owe it to an abutter, not only in connection with this particular road, but for all the projects that we do in town, we have to be sensitive to the abutters. So when we're building the police station, or we're building the C&D building, or whatever building it is, I think it's good government to at least give recognition to what abutters' concerns are and address it. So that's where I'm at.
So are you suggesting, you're not suggesting that a study be done, but rather that they,
Pick up the
based
phone
on
and talk
their
to them.
expertise, they respond to David and say, here's what we know based on everything we've done
Yes,
in the past?
yeah, basically call them up and ask them.
I think
Michael,
that's okay.
What's your view?
I don't have a problem with that.
Paul, my view on this
Yes.
is that I am sensitive to the concerns that people have expressed, but I also think we have people who are hired to deal with these issues, and I would like them to take account of whether there are issues that have come up in other communities or whether there's additional data, but if they feel like they've done that, I would defer to them in terms of making a decision on how to handle whether we use this product at that location or frankly any other location. I mean, there are a lot of people who have driveways in town that do a lot of different things with their driveways. This is an item that we control because it's a town road, but I'm not sure I don't want to make this into a disproportionate issue, but I do think it's important for Ed and maybe David to have some comfort with the fact that this is a practice that's a reasonable practice, that other people are using it, and that they're not aware of, or at least can get some comfort that this is not a dangerous practice. And everything I've heard from everyone, including the guidance that Lanny referenced from the state of Maine, is that this is a practice that's a recommended practice in situations like this. So if they get a degree of comfort with it, that they think it's a good decision to make, I'm comfortable with that.
Well, my response to your comments would be that Sherborn's a fairly unique place in that we have everybody on wells. And I'm particularly sensitive to the fact that the guy whose property is right there is concerned about pollution, because it would directly affect his property. And if we're wrong, then we're going to have a pretty good liability. And it doesn't cost much, if anything, to find out if there's, from someone whose expertise is pollution control. And I'm also mindful of the argument that, everybody always does it. That's stuff I've heard from some of my kids. Everybody, I won't put in what they say everybody does, but just because everybody's doing it, doesn't necessarily mean that it's right for our community.
I have a question for Ed, and I know you have something else to say, but would you hope, if everything comes out, that this makes sense? If we go through what Paul's suggesting, and I think that's a good suggestion, if it can be done quickly and economically and with enough comfort for folks like Lanny especially, would you want to get this down? In your road work that you have scheduled, are you going to be creating a supply of recycled asphalt that you would like to get down before the winter comes? I mean, are we dealing with a time sensitivity issue here?
We've received our funding from Chapter 90. I've got the requests into the state waiting their approval, but the bigger issue is whether or not we're going to be able to get onto the schedule of Lynch paving. If we are successful in getting on the schedule for Lynch paving, and I'll probably know that in a few weeks, whether or not there'll be enough time in the season, this is either going to be a late September paving, or we'll have to pick this up again the springtime. What I wanted to use was I keep calling them tailings myself, the recycled asphalt from Woodland Street, which leads me to my other comment I wanted to make. We're not utilizing recycled asphalt from another community or an unknown source. We're using recycled asphalt from one of our own streets, Woodland Street.
So you still have that available?
We have
recycled?
not ground Woodland Street
Oh,
yet.
so,
if
okay.
I'm able to get the roadway paving done by the end of September, I'd utilize the recycled asphalt from Woodland Street over on the access road.
But you don't know that for a couple of weeks, depending upon the Lynch
Lynch's
scheduling,
schedule, yes.
which allows us time to do a little more research.
Yes.
Oh, I think I see a hand out there, Paul.
Elliot, you have to come up there.
Elliot Taylor, 30 North Main Street. Unless they've put a new well at Pine Hill School, the well is behind the building near the boiler room. And this road going out is on the other side of the school. And I would say that there's a lot of asphalt parking lots that have been paved at the school. And I know of no problems coming from that fresh asphalt in the Pine Hill well, so I can't see why this recycled material would have any effect. Also, Elliott Street has been paved with, repaved many times with asphalt, and apparently there's no problems in Lenny's well from paving on Elliott Street, so I really don't see that this is going to affect either well. Let's hope I'm correct, and I think it would be worth a try to pave it this way. Thank you.
Sean? This is Sean Colleen.
Sean Colleen, 1 Butler Street. As you know, I'm on a butter to the highway garage, so if you're gonna call Norfolk Ram, my well is just as close to where we stockpile the chip seal that we put down on the roads every year. Get their opinion on whether that's safe, because it hits the storm drains and ends up in the drinking water. What's that?
Okay, anything else? Is there a motion?
What would you like us to make a motion on? Just to have a quick, I guess I would move that, since we have the time, that we would inquire of Norfolk Ram what their insight is into this situation,
Oh,
at a cost not to exceed $500.
I would have said $50. but
All right,
I'll
$50.
go with,
Well,
I'll go with
I
five.
mean, I'd like them to take the proper, I'd like them to give you, a couple hours of expertise, I would imagine, right?
I want to, basically call them and, because they.
I accept
they
your
expert-
friendly amendment.
They're experts in this area. I don't want them to say, oh, we got to come out. I could see them saying, well, it's 12 years of pay, this thing has been 12 years percolating with God knows what. That droppings from cars, people who might have spilled this and everything else, we couldn't tell you what pollutants are in there. But the fact that they might have to do tests tells me what I need to know. We're assuming that this pavement went down, it's been, the same for 12 years, and then we just ground it up. If they feel they've got to do all this other stuff, that itself brings a whole level of concern.
Well, unless they raise a whole bunch of red flags, I mean, since we're discussing a motion that's in a work in progress here, I still appreciate what Mike says. I defer to our subject matter experts, who are these two guys sitting on the end of the table here. So unless something pops out from a discussion with Norfolk Ram, and perhaps an email or a letter that you get out of them, so there's a piece of paper, and either, if what Paul says, if they're reluctant to say anything without a study, then I don't know where that leaves us, but,
Yeah, I mean, I'll certainly give a call over to the engineer, and also I'll place a phone call over to Roger Demler and see if he's got any other insight that he'd like to add. But again, I want to add that this is in the traffic manuals. The use of this material is in traffic manuals in a number of states as a best management practice. And one of the things I did come across when you were talking about the hazardous of this, the one thing that was brought up, that the use of recycled asphalt from parking lots actually showed more of a concern than the recycled asphalt from roadways, as far as, oil dripping, things like that.
because stuff sits there, is
Stuff
that right?
sits, and again, I mean, you do have oil dripping from cars, but asphalt is an oil, and that's what all this pavement is made from. So anyone who has a driveway right on their property is probably going to have more toxicity from that than from the access road down the road, or even the street, for that matter, out front of their property. We do have 65 miles of paved roadway in Sherborn. So I will place a call. I personally, and you're just guessing, and you guys are lawyers, and I don't think they're going to, without a study, they're not going to put something in paper saying something is absolutely safe, but I will get their written opinion, and it'll probably be something to the effect that this is an accepted practice, and most cities and towns in other states are adopting the use of this material for a few purposes, and the paving of the access road would be one of those purposes.
Again, in asking for this, I'm not in any way downplaying or minimizing the great skills that you and others bring to this. Norfolk Ram brings particular areas of expertise in environmental issues that are very well regarded statewide. And the second thing is, I really feel, as an elected official, I owe it to a property owner in town who's legitimately concerned to give him serious attention and treat him with the respect that a property owner deserves.
Yep.
And to me, it's perfectly legitimate to be concerned about your well, and if you get something from an outfit like Norfolk Ram saying, don't worry about it, that, I think, is really what we owe him. And I would suspect that's what we're going to get, is that don't worry about it. But if they come back and say, oh my God, Sherborn has wells, they don't have those kinds of situations out in Texas. They have rain barrels or whatever they do in Texas. And they are concerned, and again, there's nothing wrong with treating the residents of the town with the attention that they deserve.
Absolutely.
So you still want a motion? Then I would move we defer taking a decision upon this until such time as the town administrator and the CM&D director have communicated with Norfolk Ram at a cost to be determined by the town administrator.
I wouldn't refer to the company because the
Okay.
company no longer exists,
Very good.
but the engineer does.
At an engineering expert.
Yeah.
I'll take that amendment. And come back to us with your final recommendations as well as what information has been provided by the engineer, no later than September 18th and preferably by September 4th.
Second. Michael, are you hearing all this?
Yeah, and I'm fine with that, Paul, but I do think, we are being very sensitive to a neighbor who's complained or expressed concern, and to some other people, and I'm, willing to do it in this case, but I think we have to be careful as responsible government officials that we don't always focus on the highest degree of fear and make decisions from that standpoint. I'm happy to get a little more information. I haven't seen anything that anyone has presented to us, even the people who are fearful. I haven't seen anything they've presented to us that tells me there is an issue. I would think that they would be in the best position to tell us what issue there is, if in fact they feel there is an issue. But if David can very inexpensively, get some additional information, I'm happy to defer and let him do that.
Okay, so let's take a vote. All in favor, Selectman Caruso?
Aye.
Selectman Giamo?
Aye.
Selectman Durensis, aye. Next on our, thank
Ed.
you all for coming, thank you, Ed. Next on our agenda is back to the town administrator's report, the preliminary 2014 financials.
The Board of Selectmen had requested to look at last fiscal year's financials on a preliminary basis before the audit is done. And I asked Town Accountant Ruth Hohenschow to prepare something that was distributed today.
And I didn't get a chance to look at it too closely, Ruth, so you're going to give us the Cliff Notes walkthrough, I hope, of what you're showing us. Thank you. including how the math works on the first sheet, Ruth. Because I think we had I don't know what's what. How do you get your surplus? Or just tell us what you've got here, and then how you get the surplus revenue 331 from the columns of numbers above it on that first sheet.
1331?
Yeah.
131, I mean, oh, wait a minute.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, okay.
Because I get some other number if
If you look at the column under collected,
Yep.
it includes taxes, state aid, and miscellaneous revenue. Miscellaneous revenue is non-recurring revenue that is not part of the estimated taxes.
Yeah.
If you take, the total of that column was the $24.6 million.
Yeah.
Total estimated revenue per recap. Now, the recap we use has all of the other categories except state aid, tax commitments, and the miscellaneous revenue. So if you add all those other things up, you get $1,293,000.
Yeah.
Okay? The excess estimated revenue is the 1.1
Wait,
million.
Can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
Michael,
Okay.
do you have these documents?
Yeah, I have them. I'm not sure it's doing me much good, but I do have them.
Are you able to follow this?
It would really help if, I heard what pages we were on and what columns we were looking at.
We're on the summary of revenue page,
That's the first page?
page 2.
That's page 2.
Page,
No, it was page 1.
first
It's the
page
first
of what
page,
you handed out,
What I
right?
just handed out.
She's on the first page.
Yeah, this is what I handed out. I don't know what order you would have
Oh.
printed them in.
All right,
Okay,
so,
so I've got that.
so Ruth, so if I ignore the real estate tax and I group all the rest of those numbers
No.
but the very last one?
If you ignore the real estate tax, state aid, and the
State aid.
miscellaneous revenue, the total will be 122,
1.2 million.
1,293,000. The total of estimated revenue that we used on the recap is
Okay, I
the
gotcha.
1,153,000.
And that
The
delta is
difference
139?
Is 139.
Okay.
And then I add the miscellaneous non-recurring revenue
Okay.
to get the total surplus
Gotcha,
of 331,000.
right.
But can I ask a question?
Sure.
You have 331,867 as anticipated free cash based on that piece, but at the bottom of the page, you have estimated turnbacks, so the actual projected number is
Right, that.
over 900,000.
Right, that surplus revenue piece is the 331,000. That goes towards free cash calculation. In addition to that, the expenditure turnback is added to that, the 595. So just from those two surplus categories, we have $927,000 that gets added to the balance of the free cash after we used it at last town meeting.
And
There's
so-
other things that factor in, but those two are,
And there's some unexpended free cash that was in the treasury that we didn't use.
yeah. Oh, and it was,
So that would get added to that number when DOR does its
yes.
So I'd ask for this just to get a good sense of where we were at. And where we're at is, we have $927,000, I would call it an overall surplus.
Surplus, right.
And I want to get a comparison where we were at last year. Our surplus was 760, and the year before 2012 was 808. So we've had a greater surplus, which some people would argue wonderful, because that's going to go to free cash. Now, it goes to free cash, so it really is a timing thing. But somebody could also say, well, geez, you overtaxed me $927,000. If you taxed me just what you needed to spend,
Right, I
You
mean, they
come
could
in
say
with
that.
no surplus.
It's almost impossible to predict.
But, right, so the other part of it is, well, this is a $25 million budget.
Right,
This 927 is 4 or 5% of that, right? And, you know, what's a reasonable cushion to have in your budget process and so forth. But then the other piece is just, was to understand, and here's where I'm hoping you can just sort of give the highlights, because I haven't read all the, you got a lot of small numbers and a lot of small fonted numbers and words on this thing. Is what I wanted to understand is the revenue excesses over projections, whether those were consistent versus what we've seen in the past. And likewise, the turnbacks, they're larger than we've seen in the past, 595 versus 466, 495. So we're up 100+ grand in turnbacks compared to what we've seen in the past. What's generating those of difference? And in the turnbacks of 595, I did, if I'm reading this correctly, 362 grand of that is coming out of the education budgets.
Right.
And presumably the bulk of that still is our favorite circuit breaker that we've tried to factor into our budgeting, but in a conservative manner, and here we are seeing a very large turnback because our special, principally out-of-district sped budget amount, the actual was much less, in part because of circuit breaker monies from the state at normal rates, I presume.
Right.
So anything out of the ordinary? I mean, so for, the way I look at this is, I'll probably have some specific questions, and I think we want to understand those, but just from what you've looked and what you've summarized here, what are some of the takeaways, if any?
I think, back to my first page. One of the interesting things that I find is that every year, when you add up our total revenue, which includes the three items I said are eliminated, we are at 101% every year of what we, between the commitments and our estimated revenue, every year we're at 101% every year. So there's not any great big gigantic change from year to year.
But your numerator and denominator includes the big kahuna
yeah,
of
exactly.
property taxes.
The changes in the smaller combined numbers of the estimated revenue are mostly, and if you look at the back sheet, it shows several years of comparison. But the biggest factors in revenue over those is motor vehicle excise taxes.
Yep.
People buying new cars every year, they're buying expensive cars. There's all kinds of reasons, but it goes up every year as a large piece of the change that's being.
So if we look at fiscal 14, you estimated 690, it came in at 760, it's a 10%
Right.
increase over what was estimated.
That's the big one.
Yeah.
The other one is licenses and permits.
Yeah.
Over time, Odessa, the special permit from Odessa, every other year they pay two.
Oh, it's doubled up?
It's doubled up, so it
This is a
kinda-
double up year?
Yeah, this is the double up year. So we had an increase.
And this year, we didn't have in this budget, or did we? Cell tower stuff?
No.
That's this current year, fiscal 15? No.
Actually, we did
had
have it in
14.
14, so that's why it got, I mean.
So even, we took a
over-
hit on that, because we had 40 beans in there, didn't we?
Right. Yep. And also, we had a larger number under building permits, expecting more to be built on Whitney.
On the Whitney Farms, yeah. So in spite of those pieces not in there, so had those pieces been in there, we might have even been up in the $1 million
Yep.
surplus range,
Possibly.
overall
If those
surplus.
had happened.
So I'd just say I'm a little surprised at the size of this number. I expected a much smaller number, because it seemed like in our budgeting process, we were constantly squeezing the juice out of the lemon,
Right.
such that there wasn't much left, and yet here we see it. And it is a testament, if you look at the turnbacks, you know, a lot of stuff still is forgetting, you know, and I think we got to really understand this education piece. But all the other, you know, basic budgets seem fairly consistent in how they've come forward with turnbacks, maybe a little extra in insurance and employee benefits, I don't know what happened there. But the point is that our budget makers continue to be frugal in spite of the budget they're given,
Yes, that's exactly right.
right?
And they don't run out and spend it all at the end of the year.
That's right. And so in the budgeting process, one of the concerns always raised, but then we say, well, but we never take it away from you, is when we look at actuals and we budget to actuals, the budget makers are on board with that.
Yes.
Because they know that if we take it away one year, but they need it another year, we find a way.
Right.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of me here. What else do you have, Ruth, that you might point out to us without looking at the, however you've written stuff here?
Well, I guess factors in turnbacks are pretty consistent between education, public safety, public works, and employee benefits. Like you already mentioned, education is, and we also had a $44,000 return on our regional assessment because there was a miscalculation.
So that would be in that special
That's in that, it's in education.
miscellaneous
category.
revenue?
No, that's in the education category.
Oh, you put in the
Because they didn't bill
expense
us- They
item.
didn't bill us for the full amount of the budget.
I got
They
you.
recalculated it.
So they didn't write us a check, they
We don't write.
billed us less.
Right. Yep. Other than that, everything over time, the other budgets, the smaller ones, are pretty consistent with their turnbacks.
And I'm moving all around here, but, because I'm trying to look at it on the fly. Miscellaneous revenue, 192 grand, that's a big slug, that's 20% of our surplus. And that's non-recurring stuff, but what would that be?
That's usually money that's been returned that belongs in the prior year, if it's a refund from a duplicate payment.
Which we don't like to see. Yeah.
Police charge now for towing cars and cruiser use, and that's all put into miscellaneous. When they initially started that, we didn't have a category, and it's growing, so.
So do we have a breakdown of miscellaneous in
I
this
have
package, or
I
you
do-
can provide us
I
that?
didn't put it in the package, but I do have
At
it.
a future point, could you give us that, and maybe what we had in those other 2 years, too?
Yep.
Just for comparative purposes? That's great, appreciate having this for tonight's meeting.
So you're
I'm
all set?
Yep, thank you.
My question is the same that I've asked for a number of years. We want to get our free cash number certified as early as possible in the process because it considerably helps us with budget planning and so on. And now that we've done this sheet, does that mean that we are on track to improving our timing on getting our free cash certification from the state?
Hopefully. It's the best I can do. Hopefully we are. I mean, there's so much more to everything than this. It's just plugging away at it and.
Well, I would encourage you to do everything you can to make it on an earlier
I will.
track. If every year we can do better, the better.
I think we made some progress last year of getting it in earlier than the previous year.
Yeah.
And I think the target we set this year was October 31st.
For free cash?
Might have been
Yes.
over- yeah.
Yes,
That's
yes.
not gonna happen.
Oh, come
I
on,
can't.
can't say.
I got,
Won't.
we got budgets coming up. We gotta do all that stuff too.
Right.
So I would, December, I would say if we have free cash by December, that's,
Well, will we, two things. Sorry, Paul. I
I'm
jump on-
finished, but go ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
you're the financial guru, so.
Just the timing of the audit, when we think that will be, because last year we had them try to accelerate that in time for budgeting. And where's the report for 13?
for 13?
Yeah, the bluebacks that they issued. Did they issue those yet?
Yeah. We asked if you wanted them to come to your meeting and to present it, but yeah, that's all.
So there are bluebacks.
Bluebacks, I don't know what that is.
They don't print that many of those because they give it
I
to us
did give them
electronically.
to your office. They've been downstairs since
Quite a
April,
while.
long time ago.
I carry 2 years of these with me at all times.
Oh, okay.
So I'd like
You should have one.
the
It's been,
latest year.
it's been in the office
Okay, I
since
was wondering.
a while back.
Sorry, Paul.
I was gonna make sort of an overall comment that it appears to me from reading these papers that you prepared, that the town continues to strengthen in its financial position.
I think so.
Its revenues are improving,
Yep.
its expenditures are under control, and the combined effect means that we will have even more money next year to work with for free cash than we had last year.
Yeah, I expect it's going to be a little more. I hate to be, I mean, it was 1.3 million last year. It might be somewhere between there and 1.4.
Yeah, I mean, Paul, the other story is we've benefited from an unusual situation with the special ed money, and we've also, like everybody else, the rising tide floats all boats, and the economy's improved the last few years. So I don't want to hurt ourselves, our arms patting ourselves on the back. I think we still have to be very careful and prudent in the next budget cycle as well.
Yes, and I believe that between advisory and our town administrator and the Board of Selectmen, we have been very frugal over the last few years. We've made very serious efforts to control costs, improve efficiency, improve revenue. So I do want to pat ourselves on the back a little bit, that this is a multi-year trend, and things seem to be getting better.
Especially the selectmen, right?
Yeah, right.
But Mike, let me turn the floor over to you if you have questions for Ruth.
I don't, because I haven't had a chance to really examine this that closely, but something may come up and we can raise that at a later meeting.
Okay.
You can always email me your questions.
Certainly. Thanks, Ruth.
Yep.
Is there anything further on this subject?
That's great.
We're all shaking our head no here. I assume
Thanks,
you have
Ruth.
nothing further, Mike.
Don't be a
so-
stranger.
Thank you, Ruth. Let's go on to the next item, which is the Fire Department HVAC update. Doug Goddard, Project Manager.
With the fire department HVAC project.
This is Dave Williams speaking.
Sorry. We had an appropriation at the 2013 annual town meeting, and we had a further appropriation at the 2014 annual town meeting. Part of that appropriation was to actually hire a project manager to oversee this project, and the project manager has done a great job, been there frequently at all different times, checking on the contractor, and the project has been going really smoothly. So I know it was requested by the selectmen to have some sort of update, so I think in your packet there was a brief update prepared by Mr. Goddard, and and I asked him to come in tonight in case you had any questions.
Yes, thank you for coming. And I wonder if you could, well, we've seen your list of work completed and remaining work and funding and all of that. Our citizenry hasn't. So I wonder if you could take a few minutes and tell us what's going on.
Certainly. My name's Doug Goddard. I'm an architect and the project manager for the HVAC project at the fire department. And I'd like to just read over the list of work completed and remaining work. A high-efficiency boiler has been installed, 94% efficient. High-efficiency hot water heaters, 2 of them have been installed. With a high-efficiency boiler, you don't need a chimney. So there's plastic outdoor piping to intake and exhaust have been installed. Flue piping has been completed. Upper level cooling coil installed in the attic. upper-level condenser installed on exterior pad adjacent to the, outside the fire department building, and the upper-level wiring has been completed. The system has been checked for leaks, and the new upper-level cooling is operational at this time. In addition to that, plumbing work has been done for the cooling of the lower level, but they just haven't activated put the new cooling coil in and put the condenser on the pad. That still remains. So remaining work: install lower level new cooling coil, complete lower level plumbing and wiring, test system and check for leaks, start system, remove existing exterior metal chimney, patch the wall where the chimney went through the wall, patch and paint walls damaged during construction, submit closeout documents including the warranty to the owner, submit final payment application and final sign-off payment. And when that work gets done, I have determined that there still is some additional work that needs to be done in order to restore the fire department. The ceiling in the kitchen is pretty bad. So since we had enough funding, I will get a contractor to put a new ceiling in the kitchen, and in addition, replace the flooring that was damaged in the corridor. And paint, we will see how much paint is required to make the station look fresh again. So I'm hopeful that at the completion of the project, everyone will be happy. The fire department has really been so cooperative in just feeling good that the work's getting done.
I just wanted to say, this is David, Mike. I just wanted to say that this model of bringing in a project manager to do these kind of projects makes the project a whole lot better than if I was managing it or the fire chief was managing it, because the fire chief would rely on, putting pressure on his own men to be coming in and doing things. I would have to be spending time down there, but we budgeted something like $10,000 to have a project manager. We were able to get a project manager for half that cost, and just the value added to the project is that much greater. So that's the model I plan to use in the future, is whenever we have a large project, try to build in that money for a professional project manager to be handling the project.
I had an observation here that the budget was $239,000, of which $18,500 was contingency. And then when I looked at the actual cost, all the items are the same. Project management is down $2,500. There are 3 items added: the new ceiling, the new floor, and the paint, which total about $10,000 or $11,000. So if we take the contingency of $18,500, we allocate basically 10 out of that contingency for these 3 items, we are left with the actual total costs of less than the budget, because of the contingencies being used for these purposes. Is that a fair summary?
It is. We planned for the contingency in case some unforeseen conditions happened, and really the project has been going very smoothly, and because of that, we've been able to replace finishes that were damaged and still come in under budget.
Yeah,
Quick question on that. Were the new ceiling and the new floor and the paint items that for some reason didn't make it into the original estimate and budget?
Well, what happened was, the original project, which was designed by mechanical engineers, replaced the boiler and the hot water tanks and the piping and the ductwork, but it didn't take into account the architecture. I'm an architect, so, I can build the project mechanically, but in addition, I look at the finishes and I see the firemen who we really want to pay our respects to. I want to give them the best conditions they can get, which is to repair the walls, the floors, the ceilings. So that's why since there was an additional funding to do the work, and it seemed a part of the project to me as an architect, I'm planning on doing it.
That makes sense to me. I think my point is to reinforce David's, which is those are things that we probably should have known about from the start and considered to be part of the project. And with the model of bringing in somebody like this to manage it, maybe we'll have a better shot the next time at making sure everything's included in the estimate up front. If you remember, David and others will remember how complicated and confusing the budgeting for this project was, and the discussion of what the different items were going to cost was, and it looks like we could have very well ended up with a project that came in on budget, but didn't have a new ceiling or had a floor damage and didn't have the paint calculated, and we would have been scrambling to come up with extra money for that. So, it's a good lesson for next time.
Well, I appreciate the work that all the management has done to make this project possible.
Well, I haven't heard of any disruption, which is great, that's great. And then, looking at this list here, could I borrow you for my house with my honey-do list? Because if I did something like this, my wife would be a lot happier, This is great.
Do we need a motion to approve anything or to allocate the money out of the contingency?
No, this is helpful.
It's just an update.
Yeah, because
So
we
it's
were
just a
getting some
report.
pretty big bills, and it was just a question of where were we at? This tells us where we're at. That's terrific. That's very helpful.
You're in a good place.
Yes.
So when do you think it'll be wrapped up?
I expect next month, September. There really isn't that much work. They've done most of the plumbing work up to the coil. So once they put that coil in, they just have to time that with the fire department so that they did that with the second floor. They told the chief that they were going to do it on the certain day, and he was in there, and it was starting to get warm, and then they finally kicked it on, and then he started to get cool, and he was happy. And, I'm hoping, I'm thinking that they're going to do the same thing with the first floor, give people a notice and really stay there until it's complete and not give up until it's done.
So October 1st would be the,
Elliot, no one can hear you.
you
We
can
ha-
hear me, that's good enough.
No, we have
I would
remote
certainly-
access here.
I would certainly hope that October 1, it would be completed by that day.
Okay, thank you.
Because we have remote access,
I heard Elliot. It's okay. Elliot and Susan seem to be immune from all the static problems.
okay. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the job you're doing for the town of Sherborn.
You're welcome.
Yeah, great. Thanks for coming.
I think that's all the items on our agenda, except for an executive session.
That's right.
I'm not part of this executive session, Paul, so I will sign off if you don't need me anymore.
Let me just make sure that's the case before you sign off. Just looking over the agenda. Is there anything that we did not cover?
Nope,
No.
covered everything, Paul.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Michael.
See you when you're
See you in a
back.
couple weeks.
Yep.
Take care. Bye.
You have to disconnect. Okay, now, we are going to go into executive session. So I move that we adjourn to executive session, not to return to open session, for the purpose of discussing litigation of Cannon et al. Versus Town of Sherborn, Planning Board, and Board of Appeals, where discussion in open session would be detrimental to the town's legal position. Do I hear a second?
I second.
I have a second, and we will now vote on the question of whether to enter executive session by roll call vote. Mr. Durensis votes aye. Mr. Caruso?
Aye.
Mr. Giammo is not present. The vote is 2 in favor, 1 absent. We will now adjourn to executive session. The public portion of this meeting is over. Thank you all for coming or for tuning in, and we will see you at the next meeting.
Good job, Paul.